Mr. C here, and we are at the point where we're going to go ahead and start veneering the faces on the panels of our pieces. But before we do that, I'd like to clear something up just to make sure there's no confusion whatsoever on how we mix the veneer and how we roll it out and how we go ahead and put it in the vacuum bag. So I've kind of taken the liberty as I grab my board here, and I wanted to explain a couple things to you so that way it's pretty easy. So veneer urea glue mix, it's a 1 to a 0.65 ratio. Now I use the red as that's the solids, and the blue is that's the distilled water because it's blue, right? Makes sense. So in the urea, the solids, okay, this container right here by itself weighs 178.165 grams, okay? When I put the urea in it, and I had this on a digital scale, okay, so it's really, really accurate. I ended up with 378.16 grams, and I did that on purpose, obviously, to give me 200 grams, all right? So now I know that if I have a 1 to 0.65 ratio, I know exactly how many grams of the actual water I need. So the distilled water, this container right here weighs 159.8 grams for just the empty container. So what I did was I added 130 grams of water to that surface, to that solution. Now I get it really, really close. I get it within 0.1 of the gram that I need. I think I can get away with that 0.1 on this whole thing as far as the mixture. So I have the two of them together. So I mix it, I end up with 330 grams at a 1 to 2.65 ratio. So that way, when I mix these two together, I'm going to be exactly correct. Now, as you know, before we start gluing anything, we want to make sure we have all our materials in front of us. So what I did was I have a caul underneath here. This is the caul for this piece. I put down the paper because I want the paper, if there's any glue squeeze out or anything like that that gets down on here, I don't want to adhere the panel to the caul, so I have this paper down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place our panels on the caul. Now, with the cauls, you want to have the panel pretty close to the edge, so that way it won't implode or bend it or anything like that. So, and as you noticed, I put where the hinge side is this way, and I can flip this down. Hinge side is this way, so I can flip this down. And of course, with our last panel here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set this right here near the end. This is the end of the caul here. It's not going to implode in this little bit of space here. So I'm making sure I'm in good shape. Now, before I start mixing this, as you're well aware, remember I said when we mix this, we should only be mixing the amount that we actually need for our process for that day, for that gluing up that surface. We don't want to try and store any of this because it's just not going to work out, right? So I have my roller, I have my tray, and then I have my mixing bowl, and then I have my two, obviously, the two different things I need for my glue, which is the formaldehyde urea glue. I just poured that in there. I have my distilled water, and then I have my agitator with my drill. Just gonna tighten that up. I do have my tape for after when I want to lay it out. And then over there, I have some more paper to go to the top, and then I have my other caul right here. So I have everything in front of me before I start mixing anything. I also, in the back, have already prepped. The bag is already ready. It's already plugged in. There's everything out of the way, so I'm going to slide in this whole sandwich, essentially, of the two cauls with all our panels with just our veneer on one side. Now remember, we're not veneering this on both sides. Here's the other thing is I cranked up the heat a little bit here so that way I know it's going to be above the 75 degrees. We're at about almost 80 degrees in here. and we're not going to lose any temperature, as you know, that when you're working in here on a day-to-day basis. It's pretty warm. I do have a heating blanket on order. It should have been here already. Let's just be honest with the whole situation with the holidays and the COVID and Amazon being overrun with orders. It's just not here yet, but I feel very confident that the shop is going to stay above 75 degrees for the next couple hours. I know that this is only going to take about 4 hours to be pretty much dried, but I'm going to leave it in a vacuum bag and vacuum clamp for the next 24 hours, and we'll pull these out tomorrow, okay? So, I already poured, as you can see, the formaldehyde glue powder in here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some of the water in, and then I'm going to go ahead and start mixing this up. Now, I put about half the water in, and then you want to be careful when you start mixing this because you do not want it to splash out. Nor do you want to make it airborne, the powder. Now, this is pretty thick right now. This is like a cake batter, a real thick cake batter actually right now. So I have this mixed up, and I'm going to go ahead and pour the rest of my water in. Now, I don't want to have any clumps in this. I want this to be perfectly smooth, so that way I don't have a problem with adhesion. I'm not hitting this, it's not going at full speed. I'm just mixing it away. Now, I did do this, is on the panels, when I cleaned up the edges of the veneer, when we remember last video you've seen that all the veneer that was put on the edges was sanded, I also took the liberty to sanding the faces of this, so this will properly adhere to that surface. As you'll see, this is mixed up pretty well. Let me just bring this over to you. As you can see, it's pretty mixed up here. You know, I'm looking for clumps essentially, or I guess clumps is the best way of describing it. I do not have any clumps in here. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead. I pull the agitator off. Okay. Alright, now I'm just going to go ahead and pour this in to my tray here.